Welcome back to Math 171, Pre-Calculus Algebra. In this video, we're going to talk about finding the inverse of a function. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of this. So we're going to start with the function f of x equals x cubed plus 1. So the first thing that we're going to do in finding the inverse is we're going to replace f of x, or whatever letter we're using to indicate the function, with y. So we replace the function with just a y. Now, if it was a function of y, you'd have to use some different letter. But usually when we're doing this, the function is going to be defined in terms of x, like we have here. And now what we need to do is switch our variables. So we have x equals y cubed plus 1. Now we're going to solve this for y. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 1 from both sides. And now take the cube root of both sides. So we get cube root of x minus 1 is equal to y. I'm going to switch sides the equals sign here before I do the next step. So y equals cube root of x minus 1. And now, the last thing I'm going to do is to indicate that it is the inverse of f. I'm going to use this notation of f to the minus 1. Now be careful, that does not mean 1 over f. It's just notation that we use for the inverse button, or inverse of a function. You may even notice this in your calculator because you'll see things on there like sine minus 1 of a function. That's not indicating the reciprocal of the sign. That's indicating the inverse sign, so undoing it. So we use that notation and then just that. So that's one example. I do have another example that I'm going to show you here that's a little bit more involved with that third step. So the function here is y equals x plus 2 over x minus 3. Or I should have started with f of x. I'll just make that change here. And now we're going to replace f of x with y. And now we switch x and y. All occasions of x are going to become y. So it's going to be x equals y plus 2 over y minus 3. Now we can go ahead and multiply both sides by y minus 3. Now I'm going to go ahead and distribute that x. So we have xy minus 3, or minus 3x rather, equals y plus 2x. And now the trick to this is I want to get everything with a y on the left and everything that doesn't have a y on the right. So I'm going to subtract y from both sides. Put an x there that I shouldn't have down here. I'll get rid of it. And I'll add 3x to both sides. Now, the trick to this one is I do have to factor out a y from the left-hand side. So it's going to end up being y times x minus 1 is equal to 3x plus 2. And now I can divide both sides by x minus 1. And I get y equals 3x plus 2 over x minus 1. So that's how we find the inverse of a function. In the next video, we're going to take a look at some of the geometry of these inverse functions. And with that, we'll be able to see how we can tell whether or not a function even has an inverse.